Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Kenyan Revolutionary for another session. Today, I'm in an ebullient mood. Life is good. Chelsea won the Club World Cup finals, whatever the case is, against PSG, who everybody thought will beat Chelsea. And there's a lot going on. So I'm kind of happy. I'm in a good mood. It's a Monday. I'm ready for the week. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. But I'm not here to talk about football. I'm here to talk to you about politics. As I usually tell you, I'm your political dietitian. I will give you the nutrients that you need. So join in, join in, join in. I'm about to talk to you for a minute, okay? If you can lend me your ear for an hour or less, I'll try to make it as short and succinct as I can. So if this is your first time joining in, again, my name is Kenyan Revolutionary, and I talk about Kenyan politics and world politics as it relates to Kenya. So join in, chime in, subscribe, share, like, comment if you like stuff like that. And if you've already subscribed, please make sure that notification bell is on. You know the first order of business. Like the video. Okay, so I will not hold you. I will get to the nitty-gritty, to the matter, as we say, mada in Kenya. I want to respond or just give my analysis, my take on Miguna's response to Matiangi. As you know, yesterday he had an exclusive interview with Citizen TV where he was being interviewed by Abdi Kadir, whatever his name is, that journalist from Citizen TV. Now, it was obvious that this journalist, he wanted to have this got you moment. You know what I mean? Americans call it got you moment. Basically, try to pin you and find any, not discrepancy, but any um any anywhere where you, if you say, what's the word? I'm looking for a word here. When you say something and you kind of I forgot the word. My mind is, I need more coffee. Actually, I have some coffee. Let me find some. Let me drink some. I need some more coffee. Okay. Um. Anyway, so like I say, they try to pin you down to catch you on maybe if you lied or you're backtracking on what you said before. That's basically what Abdi Kadir, I think that's his name, was trying with Miguna yesterday. So I'll get to it. The funny thing is actually Matiangi, this morning he had an interview right after Miguna's. This kind of show you that it's damage control from Matiangi. So that's a huge red flag. Like I said, Matiangi is a young boy when it comes to politics. Um, I know most Kenyans think that, if your face is out there and you're kind of a celebrity because your face is on the news gives you time, like Matiangi, with all the crap he was doing and the atrocities he was committing while he was the CS for internal security. People think he's a shrewd politician. He's not. Matiangi is a thug, a glorified thug. Okay, so let's not mince any words here. But anyway, I want to get to the matter here. So Miguna came in. Miguna, Dr. Miguna, the guy who is a solicitor, a lawyer who's based in Canada. Okay, a Kenyan, of course, but he's based in Canada. Okay, have been very active in Kenyan politics. He was senior most advisor of Raila Odinga back in the day, and is always giving the government of the day some sleepless nights. So we all know who Miguna is. Let's not even go there. But let's just get to what was said. The first red flag was the timing of this whole interview by Miguna. The time slot could not be more terrible. Why would you schedule this thing at 9 p.m.? Now, I know most of you might say, oh, 9 p.m. is when, it's kind of like prime time, because prime time is usually like around 7 or 8 p.m. But this was scheduled 9 p.m. Guess what else was going on at around that time? Because actually there was a huge delay with this interview. Guess what was also going on at around that time, very time? Of course, it was the Club World Championship, Chelsea versus PSG. If you know anything about soccer or football, as they call it, Kenyans are avid fans of football. So the game was supposed to start at 10 p.m. Was it 8 p.m. Kenyan time or 10 p.m. or something like that? Around that same time, okay? 10 p.m., I think. Okay? So why would you schedule an interview with Miguna, who a lot of people, this guy has like 3 point something million followers. His tweets kind of go viral. People follow him. He has a bunch of following. So everything he says, people always anticipate. They want to hear his opinion. So if he's going to have an exclusive sit-down interview, given the controversial nature of what he says, I mean, he's considered controversial. I don't think he's controversial. I think he's a truthful man for the most part. He is truthful, I guess. Straightforward, doesn't miss his words, and that's what we find refreshing in our Kenyan politics. So for somebody who's considered controversial, who a lot of people has a huge following, and a lot of people are anticipating his sit-down interview with Citizen TV, why would you schedule it at the very same time when we have that Club World Championship final happening, where everyone will be glued on their TV screens, caught between whether they should watch these finals or watch Miguna? Of course, they are going to watch the Club World Championship, okay? So that was number one. Citizen TV were trying to be slick by giving Miguna's interview, or, the time slot that was allocated or put, scheduled. The schedule for the interview was suspect. That's number one. Again, if you're following it live, I tried to follow it live. I kind of had to stop because I had to go watch the game. So I didn't catch it in real time, because the first part of interview, they kind of talked for like 9 minutes or something like that, 10 minutes. It was Miguna's first question. Then Abdi Kadir, whatever his name is, he stopped the interview. Not stopped the interview, but he went on a commercial break, which wasn't really a commercial break. They went back to like the regular news, which went on for another 15 minutes or 30 minutes before they actually came back again for the interview. I mean, it was just not, it was not the same as the Matiangi interview. Granted that, Miguna was not, it was not an in-person interview. This was an, it was a not satellite, but via online, it was a virtual interview. So, of course, it's maybe perhaps there was like internet problems, connection problems, but there was no signs of that. I just was suspicious of the fact that, after the first segment of the questioning of the interview, basically after asking one question, this guy went on a commercial break for almost 30 minutes with commercials and going back to the news that we already knew, then kept coming back 30 minutes later. So it dragged it to a point where the game started. By the time the second part of the interview, which went on for like 37 minutes uninterrupted for the most part, it was already time for the game to come on. So, and I think this was done deliberately to kind of lose people from watching the interview live. But anyway, let's get to the nitty-gritty of it. Let's talk about the issues that were discussed then. Okay? Now, the first question was basically that interviewer, the citizen, whatever, Abdul, I'll call him Abdul, the guy, who I'm talking about, okay? Who asked Miguna, gave Miguna the chance to, respond to what Matiangi was saying. Remember, Matiangi had an interview the previous week with Sam Gatuk, whatever his name is, okay? So he gave Miguna a chance to, respond. And Miguna, spoke about the hypocrisy of Matiangi. When Matiangi comes out and says, we should be getting ready for work, and talking about the human rights violation by this administration, and the police brutality and all this nonsense that he was talking about. So basically, Miguna was reiterating what he has maintained, highlighting the human rights violation by Matiangi during his tenure as the interior minister or CS of interior security, internal security, whatever. Remember the deaths of people in Rivayala. Remember the gross violations of human rights that he actually committed against Miguna by taking his Kenyan passport and just perforated it and forcefully exiling him to Canada. Before that, he actually tortured him, held him in comunicado. You know the drill, okay? We all know the stuff. Then he also reminded Kenyans of how, when there was court orders issued on a matter, and I like this point that Miguna highlighted, because he mentioned the fact that, Matiangi in his interview told us that, the reason why by the time he left office, the file regarding the deaths of people in Rivayala was still on. The investigation was still going on. So Matiangi's argument was that there should be an inquiry into the issue to actually get to the bottom of what and who was responsible for the bodies that were dumped in Rivayala. Because in his argument, again, he's arguing that by the time he was leaving office, that file was still open, investigations were still going on, nothing was still concluded as far as investigation was concerned, and that was the responsibility of the police, DCI, and whatever the case is. So he had nothing to do with that. He doesn't know anything about that, and he will be happy to take part in this inquiry. So in Miguna's response, Miguna said, no, Matiangi, do not try to be slick, okay? The fact is, there was a court order issued regarding this matter. You were summoned to show up in court to answer questions regarding this issue, okay? So you cannot come out and say that you want an inquiry to be done. The issue had been concluded, and it was pointing fingers up to your ministerial docket that you are responsible for this, and you are supposed to show up in court and answer questions regarding this issue, and you decided deliberately not to obey the law, not to obey the court orders, which is total, absolute contempt for the court and law of Kenya. So you cannot come back in 2025 and act like, oh, now you care about rule and constitution and all this good stuff, while there's court orders that were, I think it was 13 or 12 or 10 or 10 of them that were issued for Kibichu, Matiangi, and I forgot the other guy who was also issued with these court orders, and they failed to show up in court. So this guy, for him to show up and say that he's running for president and he will uphold the constitution, it's a total hogwash, okay? So I thought that was a very good point by Miguna. It actually dismantled this whole argument about having an inquest or an inquiry that Matiangi. I told you guys, Matiangi is nothing but a thug in a suit. This guy has little to no education. He has zero presidential chazpa, let me say that, aura, or whatever the case is. There's nothing diplomatic about Matiangi. This guy is actually a village guy, and no offense to some villagers, okay? There's some villagers who, have integrity and carry themselves well. But I'm saying this guy is a brutal thug in a suit who learned a little bit of English and wants to run for president in Kenya. So do not listen to anything Matiangi. Matiangi should be in committee. That's where he should be. For, not only violating the constitution, not only violating Kenyans' human rights, not only for the atrocities that he committed against Kenyans by dumping people in Rivayala, Matiangi should be in committee, number one, for not obeying court orders. This guy does not care about the law, does not even value or respect the institutions that we have, the constitutional mandated arms of government, okay? So how do you expect this person to, become a good president? No, this guy is a thug, like I told you. If you have Matiangi there, he'll be just as bad as Ruto, if not worse, okay? So that was a good point. Now, the got you moment that I was talking about, okay, if you understand, for those of you who don't know what got you moment, it's basically when the when the journalist is trying to catch you on, let's say, on any contradiction, if you say something that's contrary to what you're saying today, okay, they'll pull up some receipts from, you know, your tweets from back in the day that you made or whatever, to just try to kind of catch you in any contradiction that you may, any perceived contradiction that may appear, okay, on your timeline or on your position that you're espousing at the time. So Abdi Kadir, whatever his name is, asked Miguna, hey, Miguna, so here you are, you're talking about, after he asked him the first question, after giving Miguna's first, after Miguna giving his response to Matiangi, Abdi Kadir came out and he tried to, like I say, the got you moment. He tried to pin Miguna by asking him, hey, Miguna, you say these things about Matiangi and all this stuff. What about you supporting President what's his name? President Uhuru in 2017, a president that voted for, I think it was a Security Act, which was basically nullified the compensation or whatever the case is, or the which did not address the TRGC report, okay, the Truth and Justice Commission, whatever, about the Wagala massacre and all this stuff, okay? So basically, Abdi Kadir was trying to say, how can you vote for Uhuru Kenyatta, who was known for violating human rights, okay, who, you know, not sponsored a bill, but supported a bill that did not address the historical injustice of the government on Kenyans, or government atrocities towards Kenyans, or historical injustice that have happened in Kenya before, okay? How can you support someone or voted for somebody who did not support the addressing or resolution basically, why did you support Uhuru Kenyatta, somebody who did not care about the historical injustice, people finding justice on things that have happened to them, like the Wagala massacre, people, that issue hasn't been addressed. The 207 issue that happened in, so he was trying to say, you're contradicting yourself. In one hand, you're saying that you're against, you're saying that Matiangi is this evil person and is doing all this stuff, did not respect the court orders. And on the other hand, you voted for Uhuru Kenyatta in 2017, who was actually Matiangi's boss and had committed atrocities against Kenyans. So what so and now I like Miguna's response. His initial response wasn't great, because he basically he did not the first time he was asked this, when Abdikadir asked him this, he did not get into it immediately. Just he told Abdikadir, hey, listen, you guys do, when Matiangi is here, you don't ask him, you don't interrogate his answers, you don't ask him a lot of questions, but he came back and answered it in the right way. And this is what I usually tell people. Remember, I used to debate people in Mutembei, and I see this with a lot of Kenyans, okay? It still happens now. I see a lot of people, even if you listen to the folks in Bunge la Wananchi, they usually start saying, oh, you voted for Ruto, so do not complain. You voted for Ruto. Ruto is now president. You should apologize or whatever, or mukule ujeuri wenu, because you voted for this monster. Now see what he's doing. He doesn't respect the constitution. The economy is going down the drain. It is your responsibility. This is all on you. And it's the same argument that I've been making and that Miguna actually made, which makes sense, okay? Just because you vote for somebody does not mean that you endorse every action that candidate does when they assume office. For example, you can vote for candidate A to run for president, okay? When he becomes president and start making decisions that are not in the interest of the public or of his constituency, of the people that he's supposed to be serving, that does not mean that his voters are to blame for voting for him. Okay? actually, it is up to us, the collective responsibilities of all citizens, okay, to check these elected officials to make sure that they represent us and they act in our interest. For example, if you vote for a member of parliament and they go to parliament, okay, your civic duty as a voter does not stop at the ballot box or at the voting station. No, it does not stop. It is continuous because the responsibility of this member of parliament or the legislative body is to do what? Representation and what? Oversight. Okay? So we expect these members of parliament or legislative body, which, you know, members of parliament and senators are actually our representatives, and also they are responsible for what? Oversight. Who are they oversighting? The senators, they oversight the executive branch of government and these governors. So these are the guys who are supposed to make sure that the executive branch of government, which consists of the president and all the CSAs underneath him, actually act in the interest of the citizens. So if there's a law that maybe the president is supporting that is not, you know, something that majority of the people are in support of, it is the responsibility of the members of parliament and senators to vote it down, to speak against it, vote against it. Okay? Now, if they fail to do so, as in the case of Kenya, with the members of parliament being co-opted, being an extension and appendage of the executive, then the people can actually exercise their sovereign power directly, as Article 1 states. If our representatives fail to do their job, okay, because this is donated power, this is delegated authority that we have given them to undertake this exercise of representation and what? Oversight. So if they fail to do that, we, the people, can take that responsibility back and exercise it directly. We can say, okay, the members of parliament have failed. They have been co-opted by the executive. So what we shall do is this: we shall render the whole legislative branch of government as null and void, and we shall represent ourselves directly by speaking up and say, President Shuka, we are done with you. And that's the whole point of this Gen Z movement. But let me go back to the question, the answer that Miguna gave, which is the same as the one that I'm giving. So, for example, if I vote for, let's say, let me just use Babu Oweno for this example. If I vote for Babu Oweno to become my MP from Embakasi to go represent me at the National Assembly, if he gets there and starts sponsoring bills that are not in the interest of the people of Embakasi, East or West, whatever the case is, okay, then I have the responsibility to gather out, recall Babu Oweno. Now, again, the point I'm trying to make is this: just because I voted for Babu Oweno to go represent me as a member of, as a person who resides in Embakasi, okay, I vote for Babu Oweno to go represent me at the National Assembly, and Babu Oweno gets there and starts sponsoring bills that I do not support. That does not mean that I voted him in to sponsor those bills that are actually detrimental or are not in the interest of the people of Kenya. So the same thing, there are people who actually voted for Ruto who believe that Ruto will improve Kenya. They believe that in their hearts. So they voted for Ruto, given the manifesto that he had. He sounded so convincing. He was eloquent. He had a good speech. Okay, explain himself. His point to point, say that, hey, I have a manifesto. This is how I'll revitalize the Kenyan economy. This is how I'll revitalize, our dead industries, sugar industry, or whatever the case industry is, our factories and all that. This is how I'll, improve the infrastructure, and so forth, so forth. So some people listened to that and said, hey, this guy sounds way better than Raila Odinga, who was talking a bunch of nonsense, okay? Now, just because you were swayed and persuaded by Ruto, and Ruto became the president, and Ruto started doing things that were contrary to his promises, you cannot come back and blame the voter and say, hey, you are responsible for voting out this clown. Because just because you voted for him to become president, you voted for him to become president in order to do things that are in the interest of the country. So if he does something contrary to that, that does not necessarily mean you as a voter are responsible for that because you voted for him. No. Okay? Same thing. So that's where people always have it construed, misconstrued, or whatever the case is, confused, conflated, or whatever the case is. So that was the point that Miguna was making with that when Abdi Dakir was Abdi something. Sorry for messing up your name, sir, whatever your name is. But that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to say, hey, listen, you voted for Uhuru Kenyatta in 2017, and Miguna explained his position by saying that, hey, listen, this was the context, okay? Raila Odinga had just, Raila Odinga and had just turned his back against me, or whatever the case is. He had won and whatever. And I was mad at him, so I voted for Uhuru, okay, Uhuru Kenyatta, because I was against Raila, knowing that Raila was somebody who had betrayed me, or whatever the case is. Okay, now I know. Some of you might make the argument that, oh, you know what? You voted for Uhuru Kenyatta, but you knew Uhuru Kenyatta was corrupt. Okay? But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Each and everyone has the right, has one vote. Okay? It's your constitutional right to cast a vote for a certain candidate of your choice. Okay? You can vote for Uhuru Kenyatta. You can vote for Raila Odinga. You can vote for Wajakoya if he's running. You can vote for whoever you choose, who you deem fit. Okay? Miguna only has one vote, and he voted against Raila Odinga for whatever reason he wants to, which he's entitled to. Constitutionally, he's entitled to. Vote, he has only one vote. So we can't argue that Miguna's vote, which was a single vote, against Raila, swayed the vote guaranteed Uhuru's victory. Understand what I'm saying? Okay? So there's no contradiction there. Everyone has a vote. That's why I usually listen. There's a time I was a panelist somewhere in some other platform, and I made this point. That there's some people who are going to vote for Uhuru Kenyatta simply because, or Gachagua, simply because he's a Kikuyu. They are Kikuyus. They are going to vote for Ninio. They're going to vote for Gachagua because he's a Kikuyu. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's actually nothing wrong with that. Now, ideally, we would like to educate the voters to vote on issues, vote candidates who have integrity, qualified candidates who can pass chapter 6 of the Constitution. Okay? That's what I'm saying. Ideally, that's what we are fighting for. We want educated voters, informed. We want you to make an informed choice instead of voting out of emotions or voting just because that's your tribesman or tribeswoman or whatever the case is. That's the ideal that we are fighting for. Okay? We want to educate these folks, wale wako huko mashinani, to tell them, hey, listen, I know this is a man from your ninio, from your tribe, but hey, look past the tribe. Look at what they stand for. Are they really principled? Are they people who can actually bring a positive change to the country? That's what we want to. But as far as voting is concerned, everyone who has registered to vote has a constitutional right to vote for a candidate, for any candidate of their choice, for whatever reason. Even if you vote for Esther Passaris, even if you vote for Ruto, that is your constitutional right. You can vote for Ruto. It's your choice. No one should bash you for that. That is what's called democracy. No one should try to, mtu asikutukane ama akuue. Nobody should hurt you or threaten you, whatever the case is, because you voted for Ruto, or because you voted for Raila, or because you voted for Uhuru, or you voted for Kibaki, or you voted for Moi. You can vote for whoever you choose. You choose to vote for. That's your constitutional right. Okay? Karibu sana Shimariam, I see you. Okay? So that is what I'm saying. So that was the point that Miguna was making. Okay? He was saying that I was voting for this person because of this. He kind of contextualized the circumstances under which he based his decision on. Okay? He said, hey, I had beef with this guy and I did not like him at that time, and I did not want him to become president, so I voted for that other candidate, which is fine. That is right. And it was so disconcerting to see Abdikadir was kind of miffed by this response, and he was like, "Oh, your right to vote does not triumph over does not trump over other Kenyans' rights," and then try to interrupt, not let Miguna respond. And Miguna was like, just because I vote for one person does not mean my vote is better than any other vote. I was simply voting as a Kenyan, just like any other Kenyan was voting. What's the problem? I don't get to decide who becomes president. I just cast my vote, and whoever wins, wins. See what I'm saying? But this seems to be a very complex concept to some people. You know? That's why I had someone who said, we were in a panel and it was like, he was an ardent Ruto supporter, voter, and voted for Ruto. And when Ruto started doing all this nonsense, other panelists were like, oh, you need to apologize for voting in this Ruto. Because look at how look at where he's taking the country. And I was like, do not apologize. Why should you apologize for exercising your right to vote? You shouldn't apologize. You don't owe anyone an apology for the decision you make as far as voting is concerned. It is Ruto who is messing up. It is not your vote which caused Ruto to shoot people. It is not your vote that is causing Ruto to mess up the economy. It is not your vote that is causing Ruto to shoot down the Gen Zs. At the time of voting, you made a decision based on the information that you got and your understanding of who Ruto was, and you casted your vote accordingly. Okay? The decision is up to Ruto to uphold his end of bargain, which he has failed. So do not blame the voters. That's why when I take issue when people say, oh, we always vote bad leaders. No, we do not. Number one, we never vote these bad leaders in. These bad leaders always make their decisions bad decisions. They're selfish decisions. And we still have the power to remove them. That's why the Gen Zs are trying to galvanize, organize, agonize in order to change this, because they want to exercise their sovereign power of directly exercising the authority that has been enshrined in the Constitution. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. So those were the major things that I saw there. The Abdikadir was trying to actually, try to catch Miguna in a, got you moment. Kind of try to paint Miguna as someone who was contradicting himself in his position. And I think he did well. Like I said, the first time Abdikadir asked that question, it kind of caught Miguna off guard. But on the second part of the questioning of the interview, I think he actually did well and came back and explained himself clearly. Okay, now that's something that again, like I said, a lot of people don't get that concept. They think that, oh, if you voted somebody and if you voted for that president and that president turned out to be a monster, it's your fault. No, it's not. It's not. You did your duty as a voter, and you voted in, and nobody should blame you for Ruto's responsibility. Okay? If anything, if they're complaining about that president and they think that president or whatever representative is not doing their job, then let us then come together and remove that president, okay? And have a new president that actually will advance the interest of the wananchi. Ama namna gani? So anyway, so those are the main thing. As far as other parts, I kind of didn't hear a lot. I think the main thing that he was talking about, he was being asked about the candidates, and he actually said the very things that I always say here, that the opposition, there's no opposition as far as the political opposition is. Kina Martha Karua, Gachagua, these are all clowns. Okay, they were jokers basically. That's the term he used, which I agree with him 155%. Okay, these opposition are nothing but jokers. They are clowns. These are people. But let me tell you something. I want to touch on this now. Let's take a segue into this opposition people. Make sure you like the video, ladies and gentlemen, because this is what I want to talk about here. There's something I want to mention about Gachagua, Martha Karua, and the so-called opposition. Listen to me very carefully, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. And I want to tie in Raila Odinga in this too. Okay? I told you last time in my last live, I told you this. The Raila Odinga, I told you, this guy has always wanted a constitutional change. Listen to me. Go back to my videos, all my videos that I made. I've always told you that I think it was the 5th proposal in the NADCO required a constitutional change. As you know, you cannot change the constitution unless we have a referendum. You have to have a referendum in order to have a constitutional amendment. Constitutional amendment cannot be done just by going to the parliament and passing a law. You cannot do that. You have to go back to the people directly. So we shall have a plebiscite. You have to have a plebiscite in order to amend the constitution. And remember, I told you in my previous video, I told you that the next item in the NADCO proposal that Kalonzo Musyoka presided over with the Chungwa and the rest of the clowns like Cheruyot and the rest, the next item in the agenda that's up for the NEO for to be undertaken was what? The change of the constitution in order to accommodate these clowns you see that are running around saying that they are the opposition. Okay? That is why, listen, that is why Raila Odinga came out, was it yesterday or the day before that? Before yesterday, he came out and said what? He came out and said, oh, I think the solution to all this Gen Z protest is for every area, county, or whatever, province, to choose a 40-member delegation, with 50% of them being young folks and 50 being other ages, old people and all that stuff. And let us meet as bombers and discuss. Discuss what? This intergenerational conclave nonsense that Raila Odinga was talking about. Like I told you, these guys have been implementing that NADCO proposal step by step. But they realized that they can't directly go to the people and ask for a constitutional change or amendment because they shall face resistance. So they have to come up with all sorts of contortions and chaos and political orchestra, like you see with the opposition. Kalonzo pretending to be the biggest opposition to this chama, to this government, Ruto's administration. You see the fake opposition. They're turning up their rhetoric, whether it's tribal or whatever the case. Because remember, if you remember my old videos, go check it out. In order for them to accomplish what they know the people shall resist, they have to do what? They have to create chaos. They have to create chaos that will force the people to cry for a resolution. Peace. Peace. Please, let's have peace. And how shall they bring peace? By coming in and saying that the solution to this chaotic, this anarchy that we see on the streets, police shooting the protesters and, the youth dying, is for us to sit down and talk and conjure up this plan, amend our constitution to accommodate this very political, Kenyan corrupt political oligarchy. Remember I told you guys, I told you this guys, remember I told you in my videos, go check my videos back then when I was talking about NADCO. Go look at those proposals. They've implemented almost all of them. But one that they're going to find difficult to implement is this constitutional change amendment that they want. The one that will create the prime ministerial positions and all these other, positions that they want to create to accommodate the Musalias, the Martha Karuas, the Gachaguas. You understand? That is what they want to create. That is the toughest part of the proposal that they find it hard to implement, because it requires them to go face the wananchi. So they are using the anarchy. Sorry, let me not call the anarchy. The protest that has happened, that has been happening with the Gen Zs. They're using that to force the people of Kenya to resign into this idea that it is better we change the constitution to accommodate these leaders in order for us to have peace. That's why I won't be surprised if Raila Odinga and ODM pretend to join Gen Zs in this protest. And let me tell you what I think will happen. Let me tell you what I think will happen. Listen to me carefully. Listen to me carefully. This is what might happen. So Raila Odinga, like you can see, what's this faker from Senator that usually makes Sifuna. You can see Sifuna, how loud he is. They're speaking as if they are in the opposition, and you guys are being bamboozled, thinking that, oh yes, Sifuna ana inject, anafinya. Here's the game plan. In fact, here it is. Let me tell you what's happening right now. Let me give you a clear interpretation of what's happening. Ruto is exacerbating the situation, making it worse, worsening the situation, doing things, okay, to to provoke the Gen Zs, to provoke the public. He wants this protest. Let me tell. I know. Listen to me. I know. I know. We've been saying that Ruto is in the brink of, falling and all that stuff, right? But think about this very carefully. Think about this carefully. Ask yourself, why has Ruto been doing things that zinawakasirisha wananchi? Like, this guy can go out there in public and brazenly, confidently tell the people that hawa waizi ambao wanacheza cheza wanafaa, they need to be shot in the leg. Why would a president and Murkomen and Koech and Oscar Sudi come out and speak in such manner? Yes, ni kiburi, but there's a game plan under it. Kuna game plan. There's a reason why. Can I help you? Listen to me very carefully. I'll be brief so you can get it. I want you to get it because it's a very, 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 very interesting point. And if I'm wrong, let's see. Time will tell. I told you before, like, if you follow keenly the events that have been happening, easy ODM kuingia kwa serikali. All this, remember this ODMers, these were the people who are making noise during this NADCO, before NADCO. This NADCO is what brought them in to the serikali. It's NADCO. Yes, the Gen Zs were in the middle here, ambao walikuja wakapiga makelele hapa, then wakaingia kwa nini. This is part of NADCO. So what I'm saying is this. Listen to me very carefully. Listen to me, because I don't want you to miss this. Okay? I told you before, in order for the Constitution to be amended, the people have to be consulted and they have to take part in the vote, in the decision making, in order to vote yes or no for that whatever resolution. Okay? Now, I explained to you the only way Kenyans can be persuaded into going into a referendum is if there is an event that precedes it. Not a catastrophic event, a traumatizing event that will force Kenyans, majority of Kenyans, not all, because not all of Kenyans are stupid. We are not all stupid. Majority of us are not stupid. Okay? But we fail to discern what these people are doing. Think about it. Before the 2010 Constitution came about, what preceded it? It was the 2007, 2008, what? Post-election violence. After the events in Kiambaa, the killings in Naivasha, Nakuru, and so forth, we were heading for a what? A total civil war. So once this atrocity started happening and everyone was crying, we need peace, Kofi Annan had to come in. Remember, Condoleezza Rice had to fly in to talk about that peace, to help bring this peace, whatever peace treaty, whatever the case is. Remember, so the traumatic event that preceded this the 2010 constitutional amendment or new constitution was the post-election violence. Watu walichapana. Kibaki refused to cede power after losing the elections, and we had violence happen. So once the violence got really, really bad, what happened? We came and sat down and said, this constitution is not working. The president has too much power. Let us have a devolved system. Remember, are you following me till there? After the traumatic event, like I usually say, before a constitutional amendment, before we touch this constitution, we always have a traumatic event, which was the post-election violence. So after that, the country was doing so bad, people were killing each other, everything was at a standstill, no one was safe. So Kibaki came and shook hands with Raila Odinga, and there they sat down, and there was a new constitution that was promulgated in 2010. So follow me. So here they come with NADCO, and in the NADCO proposal, if you look at the points that they were working on, their next phase of implementation is the amendment of the Constitution. And as I've mentioned, amendment of the Constitution requires a plebiscite, a referendum, which means every Kenyan has to go to the debe to vote yes or no for this resolution of amending the Constitution. But these political oligarchs, they understand that the ground is hostile against any constitutional change. So what are they going to do? What can they do that can persuade the people to resign to this idea of amending the Constitution? It is for them to cause anarchy. And what they're doing is that they want a tribal war, tribal civil unrest based on tribe. That's why you see Gachagua is really, really amping up this whole tribal nonsense. He's doing it in a very sneaky way. This idea of Kikuyu supremacy, defending the Kikuyu, pretending that he's the defender of the Kikuyu. And on the other hand, Ruto and Raila are playing into this thing by doing what? Saying that, oh, they are usually not happy if they're not in power. They're not happy whenever they are not in power, they're not happy because they think they have to be ruling. You see what I'm saying? That's why I was saying Kikuyu youth Gen Z have to take control of this narrative and say, no, we are going to stay patriotic and stand and not let this victimization or profiling or this narrative that Kikuyus are the problem. Kikuyus are not the problem of this country. And do not allow it to become a Kikuyu problem, like Kikuyus being targeted. Let me tell you, you can only defeat tribalism and sectarian politics through patriotism. You can I'll repeat again. You can only defeat tribalism, sectarian politics, and parochial politics by patriotism. You have to be patriotic before anything. Be Kenyan first before you are a Luya or a Kikuyu or a Luo or a whatever, Mijikenda. You can only counter and defeat tribalism by patriotism. That's why I say Gachagua is not an honest man, because he's using tribe to cause division and to influence the Kikuyu vote, playing into the overarching narrative of division, because their aim is to bring confrontation, to cause confrontation. They are going to sacrifice Kikuyu youth in order to have a seat at the table. They want the Kikuyu people to accept this idea that we are going to have an amendment, constitutional amendment, because the other tribes, okay, they're trying to convince them that our Wakikuyu ndio shida. So guess what's going to happen? Let me tell you how this is going to happen. Unaona Raila anatukanana na Gachagua. Gachagua yesterday was in Seattle and said this. Listen to me carefully. Gachagua said this without batting an eyelid, that they're going to defeat Ruto. And Ruto, Raila is no longer relevant. He's useless. Because Nyanza is divided. And even if they're together, we shall still beat them. You understand what I'm saying? Basically saying Raila is, useless. Okay? This, Francis Runguna, seeing you, this is a way of, again, he's cultivating, putting more wood in the fire, tribal division. Because every time he talks, he's talking in terms of tribe. Gachagua is not selling you any dream. Gachagua is not telling you his points of how to improve the country. He's not mentioning how he shall deal with corruption. He's not mentioning his economic plan. He's not mentioning how we can revitalize the industries we have in Kenya, how we can create jobs, how we can have an industrial revolution in Kenya, how we can deal with the debts, how we can deal with tribalism, how we can deal with corruption, how we can ensure that our institutions are strengthened, our structures are strengthened, remain independent, how the police force can be reformed, how our youth can have education and skills that can match global market, how we can improve our education, our healthcare. Gachagua is not telling you that, if you notice. Martha Karua is not telling you that. All they're preaching from morning to evening is tribal politics. All they're telling you is we are being killed. Watu wa Mount Kenya are being killed. Oh, Ruto is a tribalist. Anatuua. Ruto is this, Ruto is that. We already know Ruto is corrupt. What are you telling us that's new? He has no plan. That's why I'm telling you this guy is working together with Ruto and Raila and Huru. So what they're planning is to create this tribal tension, heightening it. Unaona? So that, unaona, if you see now, even if you look at the event that Martha Karua and Gachagua went in Seattle, it was a Kikuyu event. Then they went to San Francisco. It was a Kikuyu event. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking them for going for it's okay. If 1,000 Kikuyu want to meet somewhere and they want to have a party, there's nothing wrong with that. It's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But all I'm saying is this. These political oligarchs, corrupt political elites, the Western puppets, they want to stoke the fires, stir up the pot, political tension. And they looked at 2008 and 2007, the post-election violence, and they looked at what caused the war, the post-election violence. What caused the post-election violence in 2007 was the fact that Kibaki refused to cede power. And what was the overall mood of what drove people to start fighting. The narrative was the Kikuyus have refused to cede power. That was the narrative. Ati Wakikuyu hawataki kuacha power. They believe that power ni yao tu peke yao. That was the narrative that was ninio there. And so they were targeted. Innocent Kikuyus were targeted in Kiambaa Church and every other place. And in turn, Mungiki started attacking the Luos in Naivasha. And before you know it, we almost went to a civil war. So they're using the same narrative that was used in 2008, 2007, post-election violence, to stir up another post-election, not post-election violence, but tribal division and war, violence. And the narrative is the same. Unawasikia saizi on the other side, wanasema ati Wakikuyu, they just want to stay in power. They think they're the ones who need to be in power. If there is another president, wanasema must go. Because they know the formula is pit Kikuyus against Luos and other tribe, then you shall find a war. Utapata violence up. That is what they want to do again. So watu wanze kunyongana. Ndio maana unaona Ruto is boldly going out and say ati hao watu who in their right mind, which president can go there and say in their right mind can say ati mtu achapwe ninio? That's why I'm urging my brothers and sisters from Mount Kenya, Kikuyus in particular, tafadhali, this is the time to shine by being patriotic. Shikana na ndugu yako na museme, we are not accepting this. We are not accepting the profiling of Kikuyus, and we are not accepting this Gachagua nonsense and Martha Karua nonsense. We are part of Kenya. We are Gen Z. We are tribeless. We are partyless. We are leaderless. And we shall fight hand in hand with other tribes to avert another repeat of 2007, 2008 post-election violence. We will not let ourselves be victimized, labeled as Wakabila. This is the time. Mpaka msimame. Take the forefront. Msiwache wakimbie na hii narrative. They want this. Wanataka hii vita. And I've been telling you in this channel, nice seeing you, Kenzel. It's been a while since I've seen you. Thank you so much. Like the video. Na hii vita inakuja. If you let them, it's either going to happen before 2027 or 2026, or it's going to happen after the election. When do you want to have it? And the only way to avert this vita is through a people's popular revolution. Because like I said, what is the event, traumatic event that usually precedes a change in the constitution? It's always tribal, ethnic violence. So here is Raila coming in, hinting at that. Not hinting at violence, but saying, we need 40 members of every constituency to come have a meeting with us. 50% of them being young people and 50% being old and whatever the case is. Tukutane so we can discuss how we can change the constitution. Why do you want to change the constitution? The problem is not the constitution. But while he's calling on this, he understands and also throws a jab at Gachagua by saying what? Gachiatha. That's a disrespectful word. He's using that to do what? To stir up the pot. Continue with this division. Gachagua anamrushia ngumi huku akisema ati Raila is irrelevant, na Raila pia anamrushia ngumi huku akisema nini? Gachiatha. That way, Raila followers, who majority of them are Luos, let's not beat around the bush, are going to respond. And Gachagua's supporters are also going to respond. And it is continuing with this tribal nonsense. Because the Ninio, the formula usually is Kikuyus versus Luos. And everybody that's Ninio with the Kikuyus and everybody that's Ninio with the Luos. That's the formula that works for them. So then, hear me out. So here is what's happening. So let's say we go tunaendelea hivi na hii mambo ya shoot to kill. Maandamano inazidi kulinio. If we have the next election, for example, okay, tukuwe na election ambayo inakuja. The next election. Umeambiwa tayari, you saw that lady from Wajir. Uliona ile lady from Wajir? Whatever her name is. Huh? She already said tutaiba. Oscar Sudi amesema wataiba. They're telling you brazenly, wataiba. What do you think? Why would they say that openly, that wataiba? It is to program you, prepare you. Wanakutrigger, wanakuambia live. This is what's going to happen. It is to set you up. Kwa sababu, if we go to the elections, let's say tomorrow is election. Let me explain to you as Adinio. I know it's been 1 hour. If we go to elections tomorrow and we hold an election, and let's say this election is transparent, verifiable, and easy, whatever the case is, whoever is going to win that election, the opposition will not accept. Listen to me. Hata kama Gachagua shinde hii election, ama Maraga, ama Riruto, ama Ninani, the other side will not accept it. The other side will not accept it. And guess what will happen after that? Guess what will happen after that? Vita of ethnic violence. That is what's going to happen. Vita. That is what's going to happen. So you either wait for it after elections or tujaribu kutoa wacha me. That's why I'm telling you, it's better for us to use this Gen Z fueled anger, disdain, contempt for this corrupt administration, na tutoe Ruto pamoja through Gen Z that represent all Kenyans. Ndio serikali ambayo inakuja ikuwe serikali of the people, by the people, for the people. Rather than tuende elections na wameambiwa tayari, Ruto will make sure that this election is not won by somebody else other than him. So as soon as the election results is announced ati Ruto ameshinda, people shall bring up zile clips za Oscar Sudi, zile clips za huyu mama wa Wajir wakisema kura kama haijatosha tutajaza. And guess what will happen? Si mambo mtaona vile Kiambu itashika moto. Nini itashika moto? Nyeri itawaka moto. Meru itashika moto. All these places will be new. Nairobi itawaka moto. There'll be protests. And guess who they'll be targeting? The Kikuyu youth. And there'll be ethnic violence. Kwa sababu we've seen that this government is ready to employ goons to help them brutalize anyone that protests against them. And these goons that are going to be hired are going to be goons from political rival of the perceived political rival of the Kikuyu youth, perceived Kikuyu people. So watachukua Wajaluo na Waluya na wengine weo to fight this Kikuyu youth. And they'll be helped by the police to brutalize them. And we shall have an ethnic violence. Alafu, what will be the remedy for that? Raila atakuja na ile ninio. Intergenerational conclave nonsense. And they'll tell you, you know what? In order to have peace, because the Mount Kenya oligarchs will be saying, hey, they're killing our people. Gachagua will be more famous than ever. In order for us to have peace, we have to sit down and talk. And Gachagua will go and shake hands with Ruto, with Raila, and Martha Karua. Now wengine wao watakaa chini. They will sit down. Alafu atasema, in order to have peace, mpaka sisi pia tuninio. Kwa sababu si mnasema ati Mount Kenya, unasikianga nani? Unasikianga Gachagua akisema ati sijui all the Kikuyus in Ruto's government have been kicked out. So atasema okay, si mlikuwa kicked out. Sasa kujeni tutengeneze katiba ambayo itawapatia constitutional position ambayo tutawapatia wewe Gachagua, tutakupatia prime minister or or deputy prime minister position that we shall create, and the country shall be rallied together, told for the sake of peace tumekuja, our leaders have come to a conclusion, wamesikizana, they are shaking hands, they are singing kumbaya, so let us go and pass this resolution, let us vote for peace, let us vote for peace, all of us, let's go vote for peace. But in reality, the vote shall be to create positions for Martha Karua, Gachagua, and all the Raila Odinga and all these idiots. And before you know it, for the next another 30 years, the same corrupt political oligarchs shall still be in power, ruling you, stealing your money, looting, brutalizing, atrocities against Kenyans, because munawacha ukabila ichukue iwatawale. Kwa sababu mmekataa to embrace the patriotism. Niliwaambia, dawa ya ukabila is patriotism. Dawa ya ukabila ni patriotism. Remedy for tribalism is patriotism. You have to put your country first. I'm not saying you should abandon your tribe ati uache kwa useme ati wewe sasa si Mkikuyu. No, I'm not saying. I'm not saying uache kusema wewe ni Mjaluo au wewe ni Mluya. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when we are going to, if you are going to deal with the issues that bedevils our country, we have to look at it through the prism of a patriotic Kenyan, not a faithful Luo or a faithful Luya or a faithful Kikuyu, like Gachagua does. Like I said, Gachagua has no manifesto, has no plan to revitalize the economy, has no plan to defeat tribalism, have no plan to deal with corruption. All he does is talk about Ruto, how Ruto is tribalist, and this and that. Nothing, because he was working with Ruto. This is a game that they're playing. The same game that Uhuru and Ruto played on us when they were pretending at wamekosana. But the game plan was to divide, mujifanye hivi na naingia. Then Raila anatafuta ninyo yake katikati, anaingia katikati na anaingia kwa serikali. Then you have the same people still hapo kwa ni hapo juu wanawarule. They haven't changed. See, now they're the same people. Look, 10 years down the line, who has been ruling you? Wote wamekuwa kwa serikali, wote. The same faces. Raila, Ruto, Karua, Wamalwa, same faces. Hawatoki. They're same faces. And they're the people who are putting you down. All of them. So you see what I'm saying? That's why they want this intergenerational conclave nonsense. And they want to use this Gen Z protest and hijack it, use the goons to commit atrocities against the Kikuyu youth and fuel this hatred, tribal hatred that will cause ethnic violence to a point where Kenyans shall be scared and shall be looking for a solution. What can we do? We feel helpless, there's insecurity. Then they shall bring the intergenerational bullshit of conclave via Raila to change the constitution. Because like I told you, this was an agenda on the proposal of NADCO. They've implemented everything except that one because it requires the change in the constitution. And in order to change the constitution, you have to have a plebiscite. You have to have a referendum. And you cannot get the Kenyans to vote for a referendum if they're against this whole political oligarchs. So what the political oligarchs are going to do is to fake this beef, okay? And feed into this tribal ethnic hatred, division, and foment this hate to a point where we shall have ethnic violence. And they shall also present themselves as the solution by saying the solution is to change the constitution. That way we can have peace. That way Gachagua can also have a post, have have a post, Martha Karua can have a post, Raila can have a post, Wamalo can have a post, Kalonzo can have a post. I've been telling you this, and you Amuski. Look at the long game. Don't be usidanganywe na hizi ujinga hapa hivi sijui za kila siku. Screaming one time will not help you. You can scream one time until Jesus comes back. Haitawasaidia. Go scream. Unafikiri Ruto and cares? Ruto must go. So what? Why are you excited about that? Look at what really actually works. It is popular revolution that works. Not screaming one time, Ruto must go and all this stuff. You are all Kikuyus and all this nonsense. These are hashtags that are created in the State House. Hata nafikiri Ruto ndiana. Hata siku hizi ukisema Ruto must go, I think he's happy. Yeah? And he takes one shot of tequila every time you say Ruto must go. He's not affected by that. But what he fears is what happened in June 25th, when Kenyans of all tribes go to the streets and say, we are taking you out. We are not tribe. We are not divided by tribe. We do not have a leader, and we do not buy into these tribes. We, in this political suitcase, briefcase, parties, we are coming together as Kenyans, and we are going to demand for change. We are not buying this mambo at Kikuyus versus Luo, Luya versus Kamba. We are not buying into that. Tokeni nyote, natembea na hiyo tawe yako. Tawe tumekukataa. Wewe Mwamalwa, toka. Tawe tumekukataa. Wewe Raila na hiyo udini yako. Tawe rudi huko Bondo. Wewe rudi Sogoi Ruto. Wewe Uhuru Kenyatta, ishaweri kaa nyumbani na tutakujia mali yako tukishamalizana na wewe. Gachagua, rudi Nyeri, wherever pale ulitoka. Martha Karua, tafuta Kaguta huko, kaoe Kaguta. You keep yourself busy. Enda kapigania yule anaitwa nani? That person that Kaguta ameshika huko. Sumbuana na Suluhu. Do something with your life. Wachana na politics ya Kenya. You've destroyed our country for long. Tafuta vitu vingine za kufanya. You see what I'm saying? Tuache hizi mchezo. So we have to stand together. Ndio nawaambia sana. I'm making this appeal especially to the young folks, the Gen Zs from Central Province. Patriotism the number one. Msiwache, do not usikubali mtu awadefine mkuwa a victim. You are not a victim. Nyinyi ni mashujaa. Kenyan, patriotic Kenya. Msimame kama mashujaa. Stand with Kenya. Msiwache hawa kina Gachagua wacheze. This is psychological warfare than anything. Tell them country ni moja. Sisi ni Wakenya wote. And the same thing, you youth from Luo, Nyanza, and Luya, and Kamba, and Coast. Msiwache hao watu wawachezee ati waseme ati wale wa Kikuyu ndio shida wanawaletea shida. Do not let this. Be a patriot first. And shikaneni na mandugu zenu ambao wako huko Central Province, watu wa Central Province wa Kikuyu. Join them, join hands na msimame pamoja. Stand together na mseme patriotism. Kenya ni number one. Acheni hiyo mambo ya upuzi. Gachagua kuletea mambo ya sijui ati mrima atoke hapa. Sisi ni wa Kenya sote. And we shall fight for the justice of Njoki. We shall fight for justice for Juang. We shall fight for justice for Rex. We shall fight for justice for every tribal youth, Kenyan youth that died, regardless of where they come from. Hii mchezo ya to watch. That's the only way you can defeat these people. Anyway, it's been 1 hour, 18 minutes. I will keep it here. Now on up, WS Bank, and I see you, my brother. Critical Kaur, I see you. Kinzel, also Francis Irungu, Shimariam, and everybody else. Thank you so much. I have to leave it here. It's been an hour. I hope you enjoyed the session. Like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And put your notification on so every time I come in, you will always find me. Remember, patriotism is what will cure tribalism. That's why Nyerere made a conscious effort to make sure that Tanzanians don't identify themselves by tribes. Sijui Sukuma, sijui nini, whatever. That's the reason why. Because Nyerere knew if we start saying, wewe sijui umetoka Dodoma, wewe sijui Msukuma, wewe sijui nini, it's going to be trouble ahead. Okay? But Jomo didn't see the same thing. Jomo alisema, hey. And look at what this monster that is Ninio, now kina Raila and Uhuru and Ninio, na Moi, they continue with this ukabila. So now look at where we are. Everything tunaangalia tu kabila. Wewe unaitwa Njoroge. Wewe unaitwa nani? Uma. Wewe unaitwa nani? Kuna. So we have to fight this tribalism with patriotism. That is what will cure it. This is Kenya. Ni yetu imetutosha. We are 50 something million people. We have enough land to feed ourselves. We have enough land ya kuishi vizuri. We have enough money for free education. Kibaki proved it. We have enough money for kukuwa na level 1 hospital in Kenya. Madaktari ngapi na nurses wangapi wako huku diaspora? Okay, these are the people that should bring back wasimamie easy healthcare system yetu. Okay, how many doctors do we have in the diaspora and even in Kenya? Nurses, how many engineers? How many business people? How many? So many. But tunatengeneza economy ya countries zingine. Why can't we help home? But before they do that, we have to take out these monsters first, because these people cannot come back and home and thrive, because these monsters wanataka kuhonga na kuua na kufanya mambo mengine. They want to control everything. Our Turkey a state that functions. So we have to remove these monsters. And the only way we shall remove these monsters and the tools that they use, the main one being tribalism, we have to be patriotic. We have to. We must be patriotic. Enough of my preaching for today. But anyway, God bless. Thank you so much for being here. Subscribe, share, like, comment, and do all the good stuff. Peace and blessings. I'll talk to you guys later. I'm out.